for COVID-19.
GBC gets results as Ghana's 1972 Olympic bronze medalist Prince Amate is honored.
And AU starts distribution of 400 million COVID-19 jabs to member states.
And those were the headlines of the news coming up. Headlines sponsored by Munchie Biscuits. Munch into happiness. And soon we'll bring you the local news. Local segment of the news also brought to you by the GRA. GRA, our taxes, our future. Welcome to the news. My name is Abdul Haji Momen.
And mine is Valerie Danso. Robert Frimpong Manso is in studio to interpret the news into sign language.
In our very first story, the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, has assured the Office of the Special Prosecutor of a higher level of independence and adequate resources to carry out its mandate with the utmost professionalism.
He gave this assurance when he swore into office Mr. Kisi Ejebeng as the new special prosecutor. The president said he has no regrets in appointing Mr. Martin Amidu as the first special prosecutor, despite the circumstances leading to his resignation.
42-year-old private legal practitioner Mr. Kisi Ejebeng takes over from Mr. Martin Amidu, who resigned from the position of special prosecutor in November last year. Mr. Kisi Ejebeng was called to the bar in October 2003 and holds a Bachelor of Laws LLB degree from the University of Ghana, as well as Master of Laws LLM degrees from Schoolage School of Law, Dalhousie University, Canada, and Cornell Law School, USA. He has since 2006 been teaching criminal law at the University of Ghana while engaging in private law practice. President Akufo-Addo reminded the new special prosecutor of his responsibility to fight corruption independently and impartially. He assured Mr. Ejebeng that no appointee from his government will interfere in his duties.
I want to assure Mr. Kisi Ejebeng, like I did his predecessor, that not only will the executive, including the Attorney General, respect scrupulously the independence of his office, but also will provide him with whatever assistance is required to enable him to discharge his high duties effectively in the interest of the Ghanaian people. Indeed, all institutions of state will work and cooperate with him in the same spirit which he articulated at his approval proceedings in Parliament.
The new special prosecutor, Mr. Kisi Ejebeng, on his part, took a pledge for high standards.
I am going to work assiduously with deliberation to suppress and repress corruption. I said 2 weeks ago at Parliament that I will not be naive to assume that I am coming to stop corruption. It is innate in humans. But as much as possible, my office is going to drive it down and repress it to its barest minimum. When my name was mentioned as the nominee for this position, much was said about my nomination. Nothing negative was said about my competence. Everything had to do with my youthfulness, my age. But if that is so, Mr. President, I can only express the thanks of the youth of this nation that you have given youthful persons the opportunity to serve.
Parliament this week approved the nomination of Mr. Kisi Ejebeng for the position of Special Prosecutor. His approval follows a recommendation by the Appointment Committee barely an hour after his vetting last week. Mr. Ejebeng is expected to serve as a 7-year mandate as Special Prosecutor of the state.
The Netherlands has praised the government of Ghana for its tactical handling of the coronavirus pandemic, which led to the loss of some lives. Interacting with the president at the Jubilee House to announce his departure after his duty tour of the country, the outgoing ambassador of the Netherlands to Ghana, Mr. Ronald Stricker, said many felt safe by the steps taken by the government in stemming the spread of the virus.
Angola's outgoing ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Augusto de Silva Cunha, was first at the Jubilee House to bid his goodbye to President Akufo-Addo. It comes one day after his president returned to Luanda after a 3-day visit to Accra. In the 4 years of his stay, Mr. Cunha duties have achieved high-profile reciprocal visits and special agreement between the two countries. He agreed with President Akufo-Addo that Accra now has better relations with Luanda. Ambassador Ronald Stryker is the Netherlands' outgoing ambassador. The diplomat, whose duty tour of Ghana spanned over half a decade, focused his energies on improving agriculture, water and sanitation in Ghana during his tenure. He asked the president to consider a reciprocal visit to Netherlands after the country's prime minister's tour of the country in the first year of President Akufo-Addo's first term in office.
I would like to reiterate my appreciation for the way that your government and all the Ghanaians who work so hard for it have been able to protect Ghanaians against corona, because it has changed your life. But the fact that the situation is as it is now, which is relatively, I think, acceptable here in Ghana, is certainly, to a large extent, I think, thanks to the good performance of the government and your leadership. And it's very important, and I have reiterated and said this many times to my authorities in the Netherlands.
I'm particularly appreciative of Dutch support for this ongoing dialogue that we're having with the European Union about sustainable cocoa production. You know how very important the production and export of cocoa is to our economy. And the manner in which that dialogue is unfolding is very positive from our point of view, and we're clear in our mind that the support that we're having from your government is one of the reasons for that understanding that you have of our situation here is contributing to the success of that dialogue. And we want to put on record our appreciation very much.
While the outgoing envoy of the Netherlands, Mr. Ronald Stryker, ends his career in Africa, where he started, the outgoing ambassador of Angola is heading to Russia to continue with his diplomatic career.
Former Minister for Works and Housing, Alhaji Collins Dauda, has been granted self-recognizable bail. His successor, Dr. Kweku Achiman-Mensah, and Alhaji Ziblim Yakubu have been granted $65 million bail with 3 sureties each. One of the sureties must be a civil or public servant. Mr. Andrew Klokonax got a bail sum of $179 million with 3 sureties, and for the last accused person, Mr. Nwevi Tete Angelo, $13 million bail with 3 sureties.
The 2 former ministers and 3 others are facing 52 counts of criminal charges of intentionally misapplying public property, willfully causing financial loss to the Republic, issuing false certificate, and dishonestly causing loss to public property. Alhaji Collins Dauda, a former minister for water resources, works and housing, and his successor, Dr. Kweku Achiman-Mensah, have been accused of spending over $196 million on the Saglemi project, when investigations revealed that the cost of works executed on the site, including consultancy services, was about $64,982,900. According to the facts of the case by Attorney General Mr. Godfrey Dame, an executive order approving the construction of 5,000 affordable housing units, to be known as the Saglemi Affordable Housing Project, was granted by then President John Mahama in August 2012. The project, which had parliamentary approval, was funded by Credit Suisse, and the housing units were to be sold to workers through mortgage arrangements provided by the then Ghana Home Loans Company. The contractors for the project is Brazilian company Construtora OAS Limited. In the facts presented to the court, the Ministry of Finance and the lender signed a facility agreement on January 4, 2013 for the release of $200 million to fund the construction of the 5,000 housing units, the day on which the housing minister also signed the EPC agreement with Construtora OAS, represented by Mr. Klokonas, the 4th accused. According to the AG, the project was to be executed in 4 phases on 2,172 acres of land at a contract price of $200 million, including consultancy services. He said an escrow management agreement, a condition precedent to the release of the facility to the borrower, was also signed pursuant to the facility and the EPC agreements. Also on February 27, 2014, Mr. Dauda, without parliamentary approval, reviewed the EPC agreement and signed both the original and the revised agreement with Constructura OAS, represented by Mr. Clocanas. The revision allegedly changed the scope of works and the application of the $200 million approved by Parliament. This new agreement required the contractor to execute the project in 3 phases over a site of 1,272 acres, while the $200 million was now to be applied towards the execution of only the first phase of the project, comprising about 1,502 housing units. This was contrary to the executive and parliamentary approvals, as well as the facility and escrow management agreements. On December 21, 2016, according to the facts, the chief executive, Mr. Yakubu, again reviewed the original and revised the agreement and signed them without recourse to Parliament. The prosecutor alleged that this led to a further reduction in the scope of works to 1,412 housing units at a revised price of $181 million and extended the completion period to July 31, 2017. The accused persons are to reappear in court on October 13, 2021.
Reacting to the court's judgment after proceedings, the Minister for Justice and Attorney General, Mr. Godfred Yeboadami, said the case is about holding public officers to account and ensuring that there is proper use of state resources by public office holders. However, the minority leader in Parliament, Mr. Harun Edisu, has described as selective justice the manner in which the state hurriedly went to press charges, against their colleague member of Parliament and former Minister for Works and Housing, Alhaji Collins Dauda, his successor, Dr. Kweku Ajima-Mensah, and 3 others implicated in the matter.
Holding public officers to account is about ensuring that there will be a proper and efficient use of state resources. That indeed, if you're a public officer and you're entrusted with any brief, any funds or resources allocated to you must be used in accordance with the purpose for which the funds were allocated. And simple as that. So the case is about ensuring that there will be the adherence to due process, and ensuring that persons trusted with public office and public power exercise responsibility for their actions. That's what the case is about. Thank you.
One of our very experienced and seasoned MPs, the Honorable Collins Dauda, and 4 others have been charged. Interesting times in Ghana, even when the courts are supposed to be on judicial vacation. And it's instructive that they are being charged when the courts are themselves on vacation. What is the hurry? What is the desperation that he has willfully caused loss of financial loss to the state? Whose value? Whose value? Whose value? I hear an attorney general say the value is $64 million, whether he's an expert or not. I just believe that these are frivolous, trumped-up charges intended to politically persecute and politically harass. As I've said, we remain undaunted. I do not think that these charges can stand the test of law. I'm very convinced about it. And as journalists, you must be interested in probing further. Is it not interesting that they are being charged for financial loss to the state when we have evidence that as at May 2018, 31st, May 2018, some payments were made to the same contractor, yet the persons who made those payments are not being charged.
Ghana now has the capacity to store the various COVID-19 approved vaccines following the procurement of storage facilities estimated at $8 million, 58 ultra-low temperature freezers, 50 normal vaccine fridges, 3,000 ice pack freezers, 300 cold boxes, and 18 distribution vans are expecting the country prior to the arrival of more vaccines this month. Here's a report by Sarah Ofori.
Vaccines require specific temperatures and storage to remain potent. Since Ghana began the deployment and immunization of the COVID-19 vaccine in March, its storage facilities restricted it to the use of the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson as well as Sputnik V vaccines because those didn't require to be stored under ultra-low temperatures. Due to high demand, cost and non-availability of these vaccines, there was the need to procure the requisite storage facilities to expand its immunization drive for COVID-19 and accommodate a wider range of vaccines. The development follows the approval by the Food and Drugs Authority to import, distribute and use the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines.
The ultra-low temperature freezers are equipped with the following: real-time monitoring systems to track their performance, protection against damage by power fluctuations. They are equipped with systems that use carbon dioxide or dry ice to maintain the temperature when there is no power or during fault conditions. The arrival of these fridges and freezers will boost our immunization efforts as more vaccines can now be deployed.
The B medical storage facilities imported from Luxembourg each has the capacity to store up to 80,000 vials of vaccines and come with unique features.
This freezers is the ultra-low freezer because it can freeze from about -18 all the way to about -83. Yes. It also has a real-time monitoring system which is already configured, and after installation all the officers who matters in monitoring the performance of the freezer will be linked to it so they can have an alert on their phone. And in case from the national level or regional level they want to see the performance over time, maybe over the past 1 month, you can easily download the information from the system and you'll be able to view the performance in terms of the temperature over that period. You are not.
The Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and UNICEF have initiated a document to begin the broadcast of a sensitization project concerning adolescents, newborns, maternal health, and lead poisoning. With this formal agreement, GBC is to provide airtime on its major programs and channels for the next 6 months, where these issues will be critically assessed to the benefit of children and the community.
2020 UNICEF report showed an increase in lead poisoning in children globally, though underreported. Childhood lead exposure has also been linked to mental health and behavioral problems and an increase in crime and violence. Challenges also with adolescent reproductive health, teenage pregnancy, maternal and neonatal health grapple for attention. This, UNICEF believes, can be achieved through media sensitization. UNICEF credits the GBC as the ideal media for reaching vulnerable groups.
Currently, there are so many stations that people have to make a choice, but we want that choice to be GBC in all the areas that we'll be in. We are one of the key media stations in a lot of the places that we think our vulnerable populations are.
For GBC, communication for development is central in media sensitization in the country. This project, therefore, is timely.
What brings us together is the fact that we have the professional competence and the ability to undertake communication for development. UNICEF and GBC have come together to see how we can bring GBC's resources to bear on this task. We have, from our side, involved the key units that are very key to this exercise. We think that this is a development matter, and we think from our end, we assure you that we are ready to deliver.
In a presentation on the relevance of the partnership, the producer of Curious Minds, a GBC radio program, Mr. Kingsley Obinchwe, emphasized the prevalence of lead poisoning in Ghana, the increase in adolescent pregnancies, mental health and nutrition among children. He said the program should provide practical means of solving these challenges. The team later toured some of GBC studios and the newsroom.
MP for Tamale North, Mr. Hassan Suhuni, described as an act of cowardice on the part of MP for Asin Central, Mr. Kenny Japong, is avoiding to be served by the Privileges Committee of Parliament. The committee was to begin its sitting today, Thursday, 5th August 2021, with the appearance of both the MP for Tamale North and the Asin Central representative. According to Mr. Suhuni, the Clerk of Parliament say they cannot find Mr. Japong to serve him with invitation since he's currently out of the country. Mr. Japong is expected to appear before the committee following an alleged statement made by him on the threat against the life of a Kumasi-based journalist, Mr. Erastus Asare Donko.
It's a question the committee chairman will have to address, the clerk will have to address. How come they couldn't find him to serve him? I have, interpreted it to mean that he only shows bravery in his comfort zone around Medina, but in actual fact, he's a coward, because if I were in his shoes and heard the chairman talk about a sit-in today, I would have approached the committee to find out if there's an invitation available for me, so that I will plan my schedules appropriately. And if he didn't do that, or if he didn't do that, then I take it that he deliberately avoided the committee. That's why they haven't been able to find him to serve him. And I think that's an act of cowardice.
On Thursday, government through the Ministry of Finance released about 800 million Ghana cedis to settle debts owed road contractors in the country. The release of funds coincided with the constitution of a new board for the road fund, chaired by the Deputy Majority Leader of Parliament, Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Markin. Of urgency to government is for the board to diversify its sources of income to increase inflows into the road sector fund deemed under pressure. Clara Mlano sat in for GBC News.
Some believe the formation of the new board would be a relief to road contractors who may connect the absence of a board to the delay in the release of funds to execute road projects. The fund, which has an average inflow of about 70.7 million Ghana cedis, finances the routine and periodic maintenance of road networks in the country. Currently, the fund is servicing a 1.3 billion Ghana cedi loan contracted in 2017 for various road projects.
And I hope that this board will continue to work closely with the ministry, my ministry, and for that matter, government, through Ministry of Finance, to ensure that we clear off this loan as quickly as possible, so that the fund will be made available to us to serve the purpose for which it was created.
On their part, the board is committing to be innovative to boost revenue generation, tackle indiscipline on the roads, and ensure there is value for money.
We can achieve this by exploring and adopting smarter ways of ensuring greater efficiency and accountability in collecting and using revenues accruing to the road fund. One way of attaining this is to explore modern technological solutions that will help to significantly boost inflows into the road fund without necessarily increasing the tax burden on citizens.
The 13-member board are Mr. Godfred Boateng, Ms. Yvonne Kwansa, Mrs. Azara Abukari Harun, Mr. Prince Benjamin Abuaje, Mr. Anthony Selom Jadra, and Mr. Frank Raji. The rest are Nanose Bonso, Mr. John Ashford Afo Jr., Mr. Lemuel Aushi Mate, Alhaji Abdullahi Abubakari Yakubu, Mr. John Kwesi Danso, and Mr. Kwesi Kwame Busompim. For GBC News, Clara Mlano reporting.
The contentious new road toll is to be captured in the 2022 Budget and Economic Statement due in November 2021. As of now, consultations with all stakeholders are still ongoing to finalize the fee to ensure all parties are satisfied. The Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amoakwata, spoke with GBC News' Clara Mlano on the sidelines of the inauguration of the new Road Fund Board.
We have started working on it already. Between now and September ending, we are going to have consultation, particularly with the transport operators and the owners, because we must make sure they buy into it, and they also have their own ideas, and we are putting them together, okay, so that if it's finally announced, it will be acceptable, by all of us. So that's what we are doing now. So yes, I mentioned it. Yes, it's government position. Yes, we need to raise more revenue to enable us work on our roads.
In other news, both owners and fishermen in Yeji and surrounding communities are calling for an increase in the supply of premix fuel, the most important commodity in their work. They say the current supply of just a tanker or two daily is not enough, affecting their operations. Peggy Ama Donko reports.
The Volta Lake serves as the biggest economic resource for the people of Yeji and surrounding communities dotted around it, drawing traders from all over the country to the district for fish and fish-related activities. Stretching from Akonsombo to Bupe, the lake at Yeji is the highest user of premix fuel in the country, as it boasts of 4 landing beaches. These landing beaches serve not just boat owners and fisher folks in Yeji, but also those in the Savannah and OT regions. The current supply of a tanker or two a day, they say, is woefully inadequate and giving room for black marketers to have a field day.
Petrol di buy ajumanu. Yenya petrol. Ebe obenya no kalabolo obenya be 1.2. Ansa no obenya ko ya ajumanu.
Aforefo no kro ba omunya. Ye kro boat for enya. Nti abadodo a obi ho bato no. Aba ne ya che na kakra fisi egi no nkronfo omu yusu premise omu doso.
Se aban betimi aboye na aba mo e bia 4 tankers a day. Weeka. If it's a obi abenya se ne obetimi di akwaba. Nti we ni ade higher distribution dey a bakesi a you need problem bia na em makesi no ye more than saying fuel no nti basa na crashes aba.
This situation has often resulted into clashes between the handlers of the premix with political undertones.
Premise issue is also a worry to me as a person. The premise is meant for fishermen, but here is the case. Yeji is the bigger inland community in Ghana, and so therefore you see that even people who are not in the district here will want to have premise fuel from here. We want to entreat that at least if the landing beaches could be expanded, at least 6, so that at least if each day.
As it stands, the demand for premix fuel exceeds its supply, and thus users are calling for a critical consideration by increasing the daily supply. Peggy Amadonko reporting.
And this is News Hour here on